Hello to all viewers and welcome to the fifth alumni talk in this series of catch-ups, very close to Think Young's heart. For any of those who didn't catch the previous talks of this weekly series, we are picking the brains of our great alumni to showcase the achievements and stories of those in the Think Young community. But importantly, they are also here to offer some guidance from their experiences to help inspire and encourage young people to get themselves out there, pursue their career path and passion, and kickstart the future they want. I'm your moderator, Betsy Lake, External Relations Assistant at Think Young, and we are joined by a wonderful guest today, Alumna Lindita Komani, founder of Kompass and writer. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to our chat, Lindita.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you and with Think Young again.
Thank you. Always nice to hear. So you spent a good 3 years at Think Young, if I'm not mistaken, and I just wanted to know, about your experience there, any highlights or favourite projects or parts that you have about working there. I know from yourself that you worked in some very interesting projects in Kosovo.
Yeah, well, I was invited to join Think Young with a project idea I had expressed to Andrea Gerosa, the founder of Think Young, and the project was related to Kosovo. We had met a few months before that in Kosovo in a conference we organized with a network of junior entrepreneurs. And that was a very interesting experience, as it was the first conference of that kind taking place in Kosovo, where over 150 youngsters from all over Europe were visiting Kosovo and participating in entrepreneurial activities such as that. And then following up on that, I suggested to have a project focusing on a big issue for Kosovo young people from Kosovo, which was the lack of visa liberalization for them. So the impossibility for them to travel freely in Europe. That is an issue which, from the perspective of a European person, that is not an issue at all, because people in the European Union are born with this opportunity.
Yeah.
While for youngsters in Kosovo, it was impossible, and unfortunately, it's still impossible to just go away and travel freely. I'm not talking about working in a European Union country, but just traveling. Even this opportunity was not possible. And back then, we organized this. Let's say we organized ourselves and came up with this project to raise awareness in the European Union about the issues related to the lack of visa liberalization for people from Kosovo. There was a documentary, there was a book which was published called with the title Promising Kosovo. And then we had also a follow-up project, which was Sustainable Kosovo. We had a conference in Brussels where there was even a member of the European Parliament who back then was rapporteur on Kosovo, Ulrike Lunacek, who participated. And it was a great opportunity, I think, for several people from Kosovo working intensively on this project. And of course, for myself to see that this project idea became a reality. I enjoyed very much to be part of the Think Young team. I really felt it. I'm also not, so coming from a country which is a European Union member, I'm from Albania. And even from that point of view, for me, it was an experience of very impressive kind, and I really looked forward to telling my peers, my colleagues, my student friends that they should join Think Young, that they should take the opportunity to have an internship with Think Young and so on. And I can still refer Think Young as a very good place where you can have the first steps in your career to learn about how to write projects, manage projects, have an international relationship with many colleagues, even get to know important people, politicians, business people, and so on.
Yeah, I can completely reiterate everything you said there from my own experience at Think Young. It's nice to know you're such a big fan still to this day, Lindita.
I follow the activities online. Yes.
Oh wow, yeah, it's really interesting to hear about the previous projects that they've done before I came. So thanks for that. And a further question I wanted to ask was just if you felt were there a couple of really important lessons or skills that you then took forward with you after Think Young, and do you think your experience at Think Young influenced what you decided to do next at all?
Well, from what I can tell now, as time has gone by and I have more experience, I can say that what I learned from Think Young is to think in a disruptive way, and I think that is the thinking young and remaining young. If you want to really break through in something, you really have to be able to be disruptive and to be able to be young, to think in a young way, to take the perspective and think, how would a young person think of this? So not to hold very strong in your convictions, you have to be more open to identifying what is interesting and what could be good for my business or for my organization. Really open, see the market, have a benchmark also with existing organizations, and I think that is something I also got from Think Young.
Wow, yeah, sounds impactful. I like that very much. So fast forward from Think Young, to your journey since and to now. I'm really interested to hear, what are you working on now? I know about 8 years ago you founded your own company, Kompass, and you're still excelling with that today. And there's also a really interesting project that you're working on called Future Albania. So I'd just love to hear more about, your current work.
Yeah, well, I founded Kompass in 2013. Still, I never had the time to focus completely on Kompass because I almost all the time had a full-time job. So I was, so that was by the side, I kept working with Kompass. Mainly I have focused on consultancy projects, so mainly writing projects, managing projects, reporting, but also more increasingly since 2017 in the publishing area. Since I'm a writer, I told myself it's important, and also a translator, I told myself that it's important for me to look also into this direction. There is opportunities in the market if you go in the publishing direction. Still, you have to work very strongly in. Of course, if this is a startup, you really have to focus on that. As I said, I never had this chance to focus completely since I was all the time busy with startups and with full-time jobs I had. But now, since the start of this year, I'm completely focused on Kompass. In the past years, though, in my full-time jobs, I had the opportunity to work with very good colleagues, and I had very good opportunities to get to work in an international environment, be it with Italian Garden, and then with Campus Party, which is a big technology festival company that organizes events of a huge size from 2,000 to 10,000 people all over the world. And in this framework, I have been able to work in very cool stuff, I would say, even understand what are the innovations of today, what is important for youngsters, startups, startup ecosystems, do research. So I have all the time actually been in touch with young people, with startups and with innovation, which for me is like also a fulfillment of my dreams when I started studying. That was one of the things I wanted to do after my studies.
I'm sure Andrea, the founder of Think Young, would be proud that you've stuck working with youngsters. That actually moving on to my next question, you read my mind. I was going to ask, I saw that when you were studying, it was very business and management oriented. Had you always imagined and planned the sort of journey that you then went on to? Had you always wanted to maybe set up your own business? Like, was this what you expected? to do?
Yes, it was one of my aims. I wouldn't say it was my final aim. Let's say that I had plans to stay all lifelong with my own business, and time has shown that I had full-time jobs for many years, and I enjoyed them. So you learn a lot you gain experience by working with other people who are more experienced than you are. And perhaps now I feel more confident that I can work on my own and build my own business and build my own opportunities. So it was one of my aims, but I wouldn't say it was my final aim.
Well, it's just amazing how many things you do, especially at the same time. I'm just really intrigued as to how you manage to balance everything, and like get rest, have a social life, like succeed with all your professional tasks. Are there any tips about how you manage that?
I enjoy working. That's an issue and a problem, I would say. So I wouldn't know if that is a good thing. I know that there are things I have to do and I need to do. So that's the reason why I keep getting engaged in many different things, and I always find the time for them. Perhaps I do not take my health very seriously, and that is something that needs to change, and I have understood that it needs to change. But I enjoy working. I think that's the basic thing. Everyone who is, I wouldn't say I'm a workaholic, but everyone who has a similar attitude as I have would understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that work-life balance, I think, is a common struggle that a lot of people face, isn't it? And I think by the sounds of it, you have a lot of passion for a lot of different topics, which is what keeps you involved and getting involved in all these different things, which is nice to hear. And as you know, ThinkYoung is very passionate about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, having set up the entrepreneurship school about 10 years ago. So I was just wanting to delve more into that. And I was wondering if you had any important, faced any important barriers, facilitators, experiences, or you had any tips that you think would be important to share with, young aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Something which I've encountered many times with young people is that young people lack patience, and they want to see the finalization of an aim of theirs immediately or in 2-3 months. Young people need to understand that it takes longer to achieve dreams and to achieve goals. So if you, let's say, even if you fail a first time, you have to try again. You do not have to be ashamed because of failure. That is something else that I have encountered, that people they feel ashamed that they could fail or that they are failing, and they don't want to be any more entrepreneurs, and they just go and get a job. This is something that needs to change. Since I have also, let's say, researched this, dealt with this issue also from a research perspective lately in my master thesis, I really would say that it's a cultural issue all over Europe. And an example could be taken from Israel, for example, where young people in Israel, they are not feeling ashamed if they fail. And that is one good reason why Israel is succeeding as a startup nation, because they try and try again. If something doesn't work, they try with another idea, but they still keep going, and that is very important. So I would say just not to feel ashamed and about failing, and then be patient, because if you really you have endurance and you work on your idea, you will succeed with time. You'll succeed.
Yes, I think patience is definitely a virtue that I probably need to work on a little bit more. But I think, Linda, you picked up on such an important point with the fear of failure, and it greatly aligns with work done by ThinkYoung previously in Fail to Succeed, where we identified, the fear of failure stopping entrepreneurs from pushing forward, and it was just such a barrier. the stigma around it, whereas failure doesn't have to be seen as a negative, it just can be seen as something to learn from, and then so you can succeed in the future. So I think you're completely right. And you mentioned slightly just in your answer then about your work with youth and entrepreneurship, and I wanted to ask you more into that, as I know you've done a lot of work around youth entrepreneurship and in different countries, and I just want to know a bit about what that involves and how it helps, you know, the young people.
So I've been a mentor in several events, startup events, even organized several myself. Then also mentoring longer time, helping find finances, so funding opportunities, basically being a facilitator for young entrepreneurs. That has been my job, I would say, or my intention. I'd like to do that even in the future, because it's something I believe in, and I think that a real change in economy and even politics can come from young people if they are supported in a proper way and not exploited. And that is something that we can leave also as a heritage I can leave as a heritage. So like that could be then what I leave to society in the longer term. In this line of work I do with young people. That is what I can tell about that. Youngsters need to be supported. The more the better. Need to be taken seriously and be given a platform to share their ideas, to share their thoughts and their talents especially. Because if you are a very talented person, especially if you have more than one talent, you need some orientation. You need some, not direction, but orientation and support to choose properly what you should focus on. Because you can do many things simultaneously and not do anything at all. While if you have some orientation, if you have support, then you can really thrive, and you can really do even good for the society in general, which is something that ThinkYoung supports.
Yeah, for sure. I was about to say, I think you're right. You know, too many opportunities can be overwhelming and almost make you freeze. So that guidance is really important to be able to find, you know, find out what your priorities are, I guess. So I also wanted to mention as well, you're being a passionate activist as well around all the other things you've talked about today, which I greatly respect. And I know you've worked to prevent the demolition of the National Theatre of Albania. And I just wanted to ask, you know, how come you became involved with this civic cause, and how did you contribute to this cause?
Well, I have been an activist even longer than that. I would say that my first activism was actually with ThinkYoung, as we were trying to lobby for young people from Kosovo. But then also back in Albania, so I would say in the past 8 years, I have been more strongly involved as an activist. And with the National Theatre cause, I have been very strongly involved. So it has been 3 years that I am working with many other people. First, initially, it was to stop the government from demolishing the building. And now we are working towards the aim of rebuilding the theater as it was and where it was. In this experience, I can say that I have learned much more about how political issues are dealt with, how activism works, how the groups function, and then they get disoriented, and then they can even fail to achieve their aims, how you have to persevere. And then what my main focus has been to be the international contact to everyone. We have contacted all over Europe and even in the United States to support our cause. So I'd say I've been somehow working in the external relations, just like you are doing now with ThinkYoung. It has not been easy. It has been very difficult because in the end, the police came in the early morning, and they were over 1,000 policemen. We were only 50 people there, and they just demolished it within a few hours. Why it was important to participate in this cause was that the National Theatre was a very important piece of heritage for Albania, since it has been the birthplace for many institutions, especially in the cultural field. And that was an issue to which every Albanian related. It was not just a cause for a few people or for a certain group of people, like, I don't know, artists of the theater or somebody else, or architects. It was an issue for everybody. And the issue is, the good thing is that when it was demolished, we understood how big the National Theatre cause was. We had people writing about it from Argentina to New Zealand. We had thousands of articles that we could translate in those in the days after after the building being demolished. We saw that there was a huge support for that cause, and there is still huge support for that. So that is one reason why many people are continuing to deal with it, and I'm involved as well.
Wow, it sounds like you did some great work, and I wish you all the luck with the future work in its reconstruction. So I know you touched on some advice already, but I just wanted to further ask you, with the aim of encouraging young activists on how to get involved, with choosing a cause they want to be involved in, or the activities and roles they can play. What sort of tips could you give them?
I would say that young people need to participate in causes because they learn a lot. Causes open their minds. They can, of course, select which causes they want to join. They can join causes that are directly related to, I don't know, like being young, think young, or it can be even animals, society in general. It can be nature, it can be the oceans, it can be the National Theatre. It is important to understand that you are part of something which is bigger than you, and you need to contribute. If you want to take from society, you also need to give in a way back. Of course, you can argue that you can give back by paying taxes. That can also be enough, fair enough. But if you really want to change society, you need to get involved in a way. Of course, you can also go into politics. That is also an opportunity. But it is even easier to go into politics if you learn first how activism is done. So how it works, how a group is formed, how you write your opinions, your point of views, how you present them to politicians, how you defend yourself in front of somebody. It can be in the media or even in front of the people who are against your ideas and your cause. So it's like, it's a ground. It is, I would say activism is a fertile ground for people to learn about society and how society can improve, and things in the society can improve with time.
Yeah, I thank you for that advice, because it's activism and getting involved in causes is definitely something that I've always been passionate about. One of the reasons why I actually chose to be a part of Think Young, and it's definitely something I want to continue after my time at Think Young ends, sadly. But yeah, so thank you for all of that. And one of the other things I wanted to touch upon that you mentioned earlier was, you mentioned your writing and publication and the opportunities in publication and things like this. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with writing and how come you chose to go down that route, and as well what you can say to others maybe thinking of going down that same route?
So yeah, well, I always like to do research, and that came earlier than starting writing, actually. So I enjoyed very much doing research, even in a literary or non-literary way. So even scientific research, then that was the first thing. And then I started to write. It's almost 20 years now that I started to write. So at first it was just for the fun of it, and then I discovered it as an important path for me to express myself, and then also a path to find a psychological way of dealing with things for myself. As I really experience society, I like to look into things and to understand how things go on and how people function and what are the issues with which people are dealing and are facing. And of course, I know that I can write, so I kept going on. And then the idea came to really publish a book. So that happened almost 10 years ago. So it came from the poems I had written. I collected them. I went to a publishing house. Somebody edited the poems, and so the first book came out. And I think that was one of the nicest achievements for me as a person. I enjoyed it very much. I felt very happy about it. And there I understood that this is something I want to do continuously. So from then on, I have written, I have translated, I have published books since 2017. And even I write continuously articles with opinions on issues related to Albanian society, business, even politics. So it's not only fiction writing, it's also non-fiction. And I would encourage everybody who has a passion for writing to go down this path, to continue. If they have even failed in something, like in writing something, they should continue. Even my job in ThinkYoung, it started with the writing of a project. That was the first thing I had to deal with. So it's a good skill. It's needed also in business. So it's not just for fun and not just for passion. It's needed in business. There is even a profession which is content writer, which is open to everybody who is passionate about writing and who is talented and can really have good thoughts and express himself, herself in a good way. So even for a longer career path that is not writing professionally as a writer, but as a content writer for business, that is a good career path. And I'd really encourage everybody who has a talent for it to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Written language and written communication is powerful, and it's a good skill to have. And I can imagine all that work that goes into especially something like a book, and that feeling you must get after it's published. It must be amazing.
Amazing, yes.
So I have so many other questions for you. I feel like we could chat for a lot longer, but unfortunately we're limited to 30 minutes. So I'm just going to end on 2 quick fire questions. The first one being, if you were president of the European Commission for a day, what would you do and why?
Well, I have many answers for that. I would say, first of all, it's to give more focus on how to build a future Europe. So understand what is the path in where Europe should be in 50 years from now, and understand that that could be done with the involvement of young people, of people with ideas, of talented people. In my master thesis, which I again want to quote here, I have focused on open innovation, which is also something that you are doing with entrepreneurship events we organize. which means to give a place for open exchange of thoughts and ideas for people of every age, of every nationality. So to create a basis for more open innovation mentality in the European Union. And I think that there are examples to be followed from the United States and from Singapore, which I have researched, and they are very good because they give an opportunity to all people with ideas and researchers and consultants to improve life in these countries. And this could be done at the European Union level. Perhaps it's done in some European Union countries, but not at European Union level. That is something I think I would do as a first thing in being a president of the European Commission. Then something which is within my heart and is very important is I would lobby very much, and also with my commissioners, to ask all European Union countries to vote for the integration of Western Balkans as soon as possible in the European Union. It could be a step-by-step integration, first a political one, and then in, I don't know, in 10 years, it could be even a full economic integration. I think that is important because there are many, let's say, competitors of the European Union coming to Western Balkans and promoting themselves, be it Russia, be it China, be it even the Arabic countries. So the perspective should be Western for the Western Balkans, because since 1990, when communism fell, we are looking forward to join the European Union. So it's 30 years of work, and that needs to be taken into consideration very seriously.
Thanks, Lindita. And the final question that we always like to end on is, what's the one thing that you wish you'd known or wish you could tell yourself when you were younger?
Not to feel ashamed of failure.
That's great. Thank you. I think everyone can appreciate that. And we've got comments from the audience commenting on how interesting the discussion is, and thank you for all the tips. So it seems like, you know, you've really put some good advice out there. So thanks for sharing your valuable advice and experiences. I've learned a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure for me as well.
I'm glad. Thank you to all those watching as well, and see you next week for our next alumni talk on Tuesday. Have a great day, everyone.